дальше мы поприветствуем гостей. О гостях расскажет Роман Росик.
Так, давайте очень бурно поприветствуем. Это одно, наверное, из первых будет интервью мистера Вольфганга Войта, известный как Майк Инк. Давайте его очень бурно поприветствуем. И не менее из вас вам известный мистер Модернист, он же Йорк Бургер, он же Триола. Давайте поприветствуем.
The beginning of Delirium. Yeah, Delirium was our record shop, which we founded in early '93 in Cologne, Germany, where we come from. It was a part of a French system of Frankfurt record shop.
In the beginning, we did it together, the Delirium thing, and together with Jürgen Pape and his brother Reinhard. And after 5 years running the Delirium record shop, we, Reinhard and me, we decided to say, okay, we sold records long enough, we didn't want to go on doing it. And also, he always was a bit better in this business model and concepts for the whole thing. So we decided to leave, and the moment we left, it was a decision to change the name, because in the beginning, it was sort of, like he said, sort of a franchise thing, and then we decided to lead it into combat. So that was the really transformation moment.
Kreisel 99 was a label which was invented only for the year 99. It was meant to be like a 7-inch countdown to the year 2000, which means every week one 7-inch record came out in 99, which from now, if I say, it was a really hysteric project, because it's really hard to bring out a record every week. And it was a little bit like a show, like to say these were the 90s, and it was a little bit like looking back through all these very fast musical ideas and styles we had in the play in the 90s as a high-speed countdown to 2000.
It was Triola was sort of a follow-up thing to my, let's say, mid to late 90s project, or early to late 90s project, The Bionaut, which came out on partially on my own label and also on Harvest, several releases on Harvest. And after that, when I started the Modernism project, I stopped The Bionaut because I just had the feeling that I really enjoyed to, go out again, play live, and be on the dance floor, back again on the dance floor. And after a while, when I did my own labels at that time, the popular organization labels, it was like in early 90s. When he started the pop ambient project, the first track I had on the first pop ambient thing was called Geometric Farms project. It was 2001, and after that, the second track I did under the name Triola. So that was the very first release in Triola at that time. And when I did like 2 or 3 releases, I made the decision in 2004 to do an album, and was reworking the tracks I did for the pop ambient series. And that was actually the reason why I did it, because I started it in the beginning only just as a one-off thing, but then I felt that I had really enjoyed like more listening to music again after doing like the dance floor only for several years. And so that was the reason why I started Triola.
The name was founded like around 94, 95. It was after I've been producing only techno records for like, let's say 2 or 3 years. I came back to my personal musical roots, or part of my roots, which have been a bit more ambient, arty and classic music. And in the mid-90s, I improvised in combining classical sounds with techno sounds. and under a certain kind of with reverbs and very large rooms. And to me, this kind of music sounds a bit like, it reminds me to like flowing music without any hard attacks, like fog, like gas. And this was the reason why I felt this music has, the material of this music is like gas. And this is the reason why I called it that way. And it's invented in the mid-90s. Yeah, it's still existing. First of all, I have to say I don't invent shuffle beat, and I definitely don't invent polka. It was somebody else.
Okay.
It's very important to say, no, what I did, or maybe what we did, especially in Cologne at this time, is we always try to keep techno interesting and new, and we were really experimental these days in expanding the techno idea to any kind of pop and influence and Schlager and folks music influence, whatever, because we see some similar beat connections, and we were not afraid to show them, to combine them. The special word shuffle in this typically German writing we invented was just to create a known term for this and to show that we don't mean the traditional shuffle, which comes from boogie-woogie music or from a certain kind of rock and roll tradition, which definitely I didn't invent, everybody can imagine. It was just a certain idea to combine techno and a certain idea of techno with this shuffle beat. And this, for some reasons, this term gets very popular because a lot of people liked it, but it's just a special Cologne idea of techno music. And polka, the polka thing is just that I also grew up with any kind of pop music and folks music and classic music when I was a little child. And I loved this typically polka offbeat, which is a bit similar to the ska reggae beat in a way. I liked it for the whole of my life. And if you analyze techno music, you see you can do this steady, typically 4/4 bass drum. You also can combine with a polka beat.
Yeah, the beginning was like, as I mentioned before, in the mid-90s I was doing mostly, for several years, I was doing mostly listening music. And when I also played live several times with the Binaural project, but it was always like, when you imagine, maybe you all know this, you got the main floor where the people are dancing and having fun and everything, and you got the ambience room where the people sit, and sometimes we also have fun, but it's also slightly a bit boring sometimes. And in this, the atmosphere I had for quite a while, it was exciting and new and fresh, but after a while I really wanted to get this excitement again, and and therefore I thought it would be good fun to just start something new. And I had this idea because in the beginning it was modernist meant not like modernism, which is well known in Russia, but more like modernist as the meaning mod, the British mod. So I did this on the first record, and then many people really got into this modernism. I had changed the meaning of the whole project for the second album and switched it more into, even for the artwork and everything, more into classic modernism concerning art and stuff.
No, I wouldn't say this. I would say harmonies are interesting for me. Not so much, let's say, like melodies, like you recognize you can sing on the street, for example. I like this, but I don't think it doesn't fit too much in the most of my music. But of course, I like harmonies. Gas, for example, is made out of harmonies. It's a bit hard to explain in English. MI5, it's first of all, I have to say it's a name he invented for one of my projects, because sometimes he has brilliant ideas for projects. Later I found out that what the meaning was. No, later I found out that apart from that, MI5 is just a name for the everybody knows, for the English Secret Service. There's another more important reason. In German it means Maßstab 1:5, and this is a rule, a law out of the higher mathematics. And it means that the relation, for me, I explained it into the relation of two notes. If you say you have the C note on a record, and you use a sampler, and you use a loop, a rhythmic sound, and you loop it like boof chick, you know, everybody understands. And you push two buttons, the C, and 5 notes below, the G below. Then you get a certain rhythmic relation which works on its own, against each other and together. And this is a mathematic rule which you can use on a musical theory, on a rhythm theory. And the project MI5, all the tracks or the main tracks are made with this theory or based on this theory. As Mike Inc., definitely not. It's really hard to explain. People won't understand. I don't use this name for 10 years because there was a certain point when it gets in the mid-90s, it gets really popular. And everybody thought it's my real name, it's me, but it's just a project name, like gas. And it's temporary, of course, and it's done. This project was called Grunge Man, and the female vocal is Juliane Werding. She was a famous Schlager singer from the early 70s in Germany. And this is just an illegal sample. There's a few 12 inches came out under the name, but this is the most well-known track because it has this sample which everybody has in mind. There were, I think, 3 maxis under the name. And I made out of this project, then came later, it was the project Wassermann. I renamed it in a way. You really want to know it? You want to have some connections or the pressing? No, it's just how does it cost? It's hard to say. Let me explain like this. The prices are different. You can produce records like this all over the world. You can produce it in France as well as in Russia if you like. The production costs are relative because it depends on what you're spending. What we did all over the years and why we're happy to say we have been successful also business-wise in producing records is that we tried to spend as less money as possible and to spend the money on the production of the record and not so much on the promotion or whatever. This is the reason why I can say that we as a company, we had a break even like around when we sold 612 inches in the 90s when we had our peak, we recouped our money. So you can imagine when you sell 1,000 records, you start earning money. We don't have any contracts with the stores, we just sell records to them. This is enough contract. No, we only have one store, it's based in Cologne and it's all under one roof. It's distribution and label. Well, first we started the label in '98 and then we decided, okay, we are strong enough, we're people enough, we got ideas enough to do this distribution on our own. At this time, the market was really growing, but it was still alternative. So it means it's always the best way to have the control, the most possible control of your music if you do the whole manufacturing and selling and distribution on your own. The less people who influence your decisions in your music, the better for you. So in these times, in the late 90s when we did it, the market was really perfect and prepared and ready for it. So it was easy to build up a worldwide networking because all the institutions in the whole world were already existing and we just had to get in contact with them and to build connections. Today, Compact, the whole company has around about 25 people working for Compact, including our own. There is one in-house label, the main label, which is Compact, of course, and the sub-labels, Compact Extra and Compact Pop, and so on. And on top of this, we have like around about 100 exclusive worldwide techno labels who release more or less regularly records, most of all vinyl records, some of them also CDs, like 10%, and as everybody can imagine, more and more digital.
The fact is, you're absolutely right. You know, at that time, you couldn't say it wasn't like, you know, in the days of Kraftwerk, it was really, really expensive to make electronic music. In the days when we started, it was a lot cheaper, but it was still more difficult than today because you couldn't do it with a computer. You needed a computer maybe for sequencing, but not for really making the sound because they couldn't. And it was, you know, the main problem that we had was just to know how do people make this sound. You know, we had like a little Atari computer and we had a sampler and we tried to make this sound, but we couldn't, you know. The funny thing is the very first releases we ever did in this kind of direction, which you could call techno, has been released by Thomas Fehlmann, who's sitting over there, on his Teutonic Beats series in England. You know, nowadays every child knows that a 303 is needed to make an acid house track, but in those days we simply didn't know. And we tried everything to find out. And when finally we were producing at the early 90s, we were producing in Belgium. And one day we came into a studio because we were looking for studios where we could produce our records and mix our records. And we came there and there was standing a 303 and a 909. And we were like, we couldn't believe it. You know, we couldn't believe how easy it was to make this sound. It was just switch the machine on and you got the sound. And what we did, you know, we tried to refine this sound for almost 2 years and we couldn't imagine how it worked. But the advantage, and that's to come back to your question, the advantage we had is really that we were some of the first who did this. And so it was easier for us to give a landmark of our sound at that time. But we didn't try to get famous at that time because we were more like you see nowadays, we're still a bit shy, but at that time we were really shy. You know, we didn't want to be we didn't want to be any kind of famous or something, and so we did everything under AKAs. So we had only pseudonym stuff going, and we didn't use our own names. So very often we came to parties where people were playing our records and they didn't even want to let us in because they didn't know who we were. So that is absolutely true. And nowadays there's like the development, as you described, is exactly that people can make music this kind of music a lot easier, but it's really because everybody can do it. It's very hard to make your own thing and to get famous. And I'm always surprised when I see that people nowadays can manage to get this. Some of them are really, really good. That might be the reason, you know, or one of the reasons. If you're really good, I guess you can make it. But it is definitely more difficult than it was before, I guess.
Of course, it's to me as a label manager, I can say we get much more demos, music from all over the world, send it to Compact that we might be able to release, even the really, really good ones. So you can imagine we have the choice and we only can use 5%, and of this 5% we can only use the best. On the other side, I really have to say we as a label, we definitely have no prejudice about where music comes from, who makes it. We listen from records all over the world. It doesn't matter, we don't care is the music from Germany, France, Russia, England or somewhere else. We just listen to the music. Normally when we listen to demos and we make a decision, we don't know nothing about the guy behind. Is it a boy or girl? Is he young or old? Is it 2 people or 10 people? Is it made with computer or is it played by guitar? I don't care. I listen to the music. If we like, we get in contact and then we might do a record. Yeah, it's more and more going in this direction. This is true, and unfortunately it's really true that all these piracy market and the new digital market, let's say the favor is that everybody in the world via internet can listen to the same music at the same time. But that's it. The problem for the music market is that when nobody is willing to pay anymore for music, you cannot afford anymore to do good music, you know, because good art has to be paid. This is the reason. And with every year, it's harder to explain to the people that it's important to keep the quality and to keep the market alive. That music has worse. You have to pay something for it. you know, and this is a hard problem also for the guys you told, and for there's a lot of producers who are around who used to earn their money with doing records because the sales are going low. This is absolutely because of piracy, because of internet, and it's more and more people producing these kind of music and doing their records just to promote themselves for getting DJ gigs or getting live gigs. I have to explain, this is a personal joke between me and my Russian friend here, you know, because he always asks me what kind of equipment we use, you know, and he knows I don't never talk about equipment, therefore I have Jörg.
But still, I guess you might ask this question on a more general base, did you? No, I think that was a joke running because they were always asking, and he said he wanted to learn the manual, but he didn't have the time to learn the manual. So maybe we talk about evolution in general.
It had red lights, a grey carpet. He has orange lights in the studio.
The color of the walls.
It's dark grey. Yeah, we have mini bars, of course, in
With
every
vodka.
studio. Yeah, canapes, swimming pools, whirlpools in every studio, of course. When we came down, there's not less than 50 naked girls and drinks. It's wonderful. Otherwise, we cannot work. He needs service, otherwise he won't work. You know. Look at him. He looks. That's for the future. Yeah, to go on like this. No. Yeah, meanwhile, we're doing this job like in this kind of music like 17, 18 years. So in a way, we feel established in a way. We know this music. I have to say about techno is not new anymore. This is of course true, but for us it's still the most impressive and newest music available. So as long as techno is existing, we will do this music, of course. Techno in general, it reaches music history. You know, techno is something like the rock and roll of the 90s. This is what I mean when I say it's not new anymore, but it's still the newest music and the wildest music and the best way of staying resistant against any boring tendencies is still techno music. When you go to techno parties, in a way it seems like it's still the same like for 10 years, but it's still the best, wildest and freshest thing you can get. For us, for example, we're coming from pop music. For us it always has been something like transporting our visions, our idea, something like soul, like sexiness, like this, you know, and not just functional music, sitting at home, pushing some buttons and loading down some presets.
If there would be any music that would be as exciting as techno was or still is, I'm sure we will do it. You know what I mean? It's like we do techno because we really think, or what we call techno, you know, and it's simply, you know, our music that we feel like for, like you said, like for almost 20 years now, and it's still the best music around for us. So maybe if there would be something which, you know, can give us the same feelings that we have in techno, that could be a real development, you know. But one thing I'm really sure is that we might not the people who invent the very new stuff. That should be the younger guys or girls who do that. Well, ambient music is still is not such a mainstream thing, or hasn't ever been such a mainstream thing. So it has much more time to develop. There has been a time in the 90s when all this warp stuff was really famous, this intelligent ambient stuff and all this. And nowadays, I mean, it's just, even like techno, it's just one music in between many other kinds of music. And so to do ambient music is like still great fun, and we also enjoy it very much doing ambient music. But it's not like, you know, it's not like, how can we say, it's not like you're not in the first row of fighting when you do ambient music, you know. Techno is in the front and ambient is in the back or in the rear. So that's I think it's easier to make ambient music in that way, so that you don't have to, that you're more free, you know, more open. Oh, my biggest luck was, of course, to meet him. I wouldn't really say I was really lucky, because the luck was maybe or I could say I'm lucky because I just can do what I want to do. So that's great luck, of course. But I must say, even if it sounds boring, it was still a bit of work to do. You know, because even when you were asking about people that come out today to become famous or become successful in any kind of way, you never should forget that between the time we were starting to do it and the time we were recognized, there was at least about 4 or 5 years.
Okay, well, first of all, when I started with the music in the 90s, I saw myself just as a producer and as an artist. I don't felt really, at this time it was not so usual to bring this music as a live act on stage. This starts a little later. And I've never been a DJ in my life. Normally this kind of music, you make records and it's get to the people via DJs. And I was no DJ. At a certain time I get more and more requested because people like my record to play as a DJ, and I said I'm no DJ, so I decided to play live. The other thing was that I never, at these days, never could hear my music that way in the clubs, that I wanted to hear it, because DJ always combine, they mix, they change, they pitch, and I said, okay, it's fine, but I don't want to be my music that much influence, and that was the only chance to do this, was to play live. So I did it for a certain time, for a few years, and then I found out that at a certain point for me it was enough said, and I said it was not my idea of myself to do this for the rest of my life, just to be present or maybe just to earn money. This was not the reason for me. And I decided to go back to the studio and go back from the front, if you like, from the stage, from the clubs, and go back to the studios. And I needed a creative break at these days, and because I started building up the compact company, and this was more work than expected. So this break from playing live my own music gets a little longer than I thought.